Hello, my friends. On today's episode, I'm speaking with Pete Dupuis, and we're talking about the importance of lead attribution, of knowing where your leads are coming from so you can strategize all of your marketing efforts accordingly. So if you're not 100% sure always how you generated each lead, this is a great podcast for you, give you all our tips and tricks. So keep on listening. Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business of Unicorns podcast. Today I'm back with Pete. Hello, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Michael?
I'm having a great day. We're recording on a Tuesday. It's a nice chill day here in the Hudson Valley. So I'm doing great. Sweatpants and socks kind of day.
Yeah, I'm fresh off a trip to NYC and feeling
That's
strangely
right.
refreshed. Sometimes I come back from your hood feeling more tired than when I left, but I had
Oh
a
my
really good trip,
gosh.
so
Yeah, tell me about
ready
it.
to chat.
Now that I spend a lot of my time upstate in the Hudson Valley, when I go into the city, I get that kind of tourist exhaustion of like, how do you all live here? Even though I did for a decade, and I still do sometimes. It's amazing. Well, before we dive into today's conversation, I just want to do a quick little shout out to our friends at Kilo. I know many of you out there are not happy with the software you use to communicate with leads, email folks, text folks, do billing and scheduling. And Kilo is a great piece of software. We've been working with them for a while. A lot of our Unicorn Signing members really love them. It's kind of a one-stop shop to put all that software in one spot. And it's pretty fantastic. You can go to usekilo.com, schedule an appointment, talk to them if it's the right fit for you. But we really like them a lot. And every Unicorn Signing member who has switched to using Kilo has only good things to say. Pete, I'm sure you talk to folks all the time who are using it now. And I've only heard good things so far.
Oh, well, I'll admit I took the sales call from Kilo in the last 2 weeks.
Yep.
I let them sell me, and their pricing is outrageously underrated.
Yep.
I think that's
Yep.
an angle that they don't play hard enough, if I'm being honest,
Yeah.
because they are underpriced based on what they deliver. And we intend to move in that direction in the next 6 months. And the thing that I'll emphasize with Kilo is that there's no mandate that you use the whole suite of services,
Yep.
because as we come out of the gate, I made it clear to them that I need a website and that's all I need.
Yep.
And they were excited to work with us, and they've already rolled out 5 to 7 really cool examples that they think would match for us via email, and they're not pushing me too hard. So they're going to get my business. I'm just waiting for my business partner to get back into town so we can sit face to face and talk through our objectives.
Yeah, I love that. Whether you just need a website that integrates well with forms and landing pages and email and text follow-ups and automations, or you need a whole billing scheduling software to replace one that you're already using, they have options, my friends. So go check it out, usekilo.com, and tell them we sent you. Let's dive into today's topic. Today, Pete, I'll let you introduce the topic today because this is your idea, fresh off a conversation with a real life Unicorn Society member. We won't mention the name, but we just talk a little bit about what inspired today's conversation and what are we talking about?
So I think the brilliance in the timing of our podcast recording, end of the day Tuesdays, which is my coaching day. I spend most of my day doing coaching calls with the Unicorn Society, is that I can typically show up to you with an idea from a problem we troubleshooted.
We'll
A
take it
problem
all.
I tackled during a coaching call in the day.
Yeah.
And I had a member of Unicorn Society this morning tell me that they were excited because they added 3 new clients this past week, which is wonderful news. And I said, that's awesome. How did they hear about you? And the answer was, I don't know. And I probed a little deeper. And then the answer became, well, it could have been Instagram. It could have been word of mouth. It could have been some traditional advertising. It could have been that charity event we hosted a couple weeks ago. It could have been 15 different things. And my question for him was, how are we going to make any meaningful decisions here on this coaching call about where you should allocate your resources when you can't give me any feedback as to how your resources are working at this moment?
Yeah.
Because that's all we are, as accountability partners. And I felt like I was handed an incomplete data set and then asked to make a decision. And so today's topic of suggestion from me was that we talk about the importance of lead attribution and going that final step. It's great to get the person in the door and monetize them and deliver them an exceptional experience, but we are we're leaving opportunity on the table by not figuring out where those leads originated and acknowledging that they don't typically come from a singular post or place, but we need more data.
Yeah. Well said. I think it's such a great topic. And I don't know if we ever specifically talked about this point on the podcast before. And I think I'll just say this about why I think this is so important is that as really small business owners, and let's face it, all gyms, even ours, are considered small businesses. As small business owners, we don't have infinite resources for marketing and lead acquisition. Like the giant companies out there we're competing with on digital who have millions and millions, if not billions of dollars. We have very small budgets for marketing, which means we have to make every dollar count. And so if you're spending time, energy, and money or any resources on marketing or lead acquisition, and it's not returning an investment, you should really consider not doing that thing anymore. Which means when you're doing something, when you're posting on social, you're doing live events, you're doing paid digital, you're doing organic social media stuff, right? You need to be tracking how much that's working. And one of the ways you do that is by asking people how they heard about you, how they engaged with you before they came. That helps make sure that every penny you're spending, every hour you're spending, every minute you're spending on trying to generate leads, that you know whether or not it's having an effect. So yeah, so Pete, how did that conversation go? What did you tell the person to do next?
Well, I think it's a simple fix. We're talking about 3 people, and these are new clients. So the objective is clearly to over deliver during the coaching experience. So I kept this really simple for him. I said, make a list of all the ways they could have heard from you. Walk out to that person during their warm up. They might be on a foam roller. They might be taking their shoes off in the warm up area, and hand them a clipboard with that list on it and a highlighter and say, please highlight all of the ways that you have been exposed to our brand up to this moment in time. Yep. Nobody's going to take offense to that. Now, obviously, that is like criminally simplistic. But at the same time, who of those 3 people are going to look at him and say, seriously, you're really going to make me do this? They're going to be like, oh, yeah, I can do this for you. Sure.
100%.
It was this, and this. And all you say is, thank you for your feedback. Now put your shoes back on. We're going to go learn how to do this thing over here. And then you bring that information back to Keeler for your next coaching call.
Yep.
And you make informed decisions. That's the key right there.
Yeah, 100%. People are so happy to tell you about this. They'll be like, oh my gosh, well, I found your podcast, or I saw that your reels on Instagram, or I work with someone who goes here, Susie, right? They'll be happy to tell you if they remember. In some cases, they won't remember, and you'll have to probe a little bit. But I think this is a great example of, if you haven't done it recently, go do what Pete said. Go find the last 10 people that joined your gym, bring them the clipboard with the highlighter, right? And just go gather the data and put it in a spreadsheet. Because we're not looking for one-off data. We're looking for trends. We're looking for over the course of a month or 2 or 3 months. What are the primary sources that people are engaging with you? What are the primary sources people are engaging in with you? Sorry, I was missing a preposition. And those are the things you want to double down on and invest more on. And the things that people have not mentioned at all, have not highlighted, those things you want to do less of, ideally, or improve the efficiency of. And then I'll say that's a good quick fix. If you haven't been tracking, I love this clipboard highlighter method. I think it's fantastic. But then moving forward, this should be part of your onboarding. It should be part of your sales conversation. When you first engage with people, the first question you ask is, how'd you find us? And you list all the ways. Where did you first hear about us? Are you on our email list? Let me see. Do you follow us on Instagram? We can do a little of this digging before even the sales call. Then we record that information somewhere so we can see the long-term trends over time. Yeah. What would you add to that, Pete?
I would add that if we come back to the clipboard conversation, the first session, be it the initial evaluation or day 1 of, say, your first program, it's still a period where you're feeling that person out. You're trying to figure out where your common ground lies. And the answer to these questions can be the jumping off point conversationally in that training session. They give you a window into who they are. So if they say, I'm primarily aware of you because of Instagram, and you say, okay, awesome, cool, thanks for that feedback. And 10 minutes later, while they're between sets on the trap bar, you say, so you use Instagram, any examples of cool accounts I should follow? Or you mentioned that you saw us on Instagram. Was there a specific post that we put up that made you laugh or actually compelled you to come through the door? Or you said you listened to that podcast Keeler and I did. Which one? We record so many. I'm really interested. Which one was it? Why do you like it? And it's hard to manufacture conversation out of nothing if you're, say, a new entry level strength coach, or you're not the owner of the business. Like for us, it's our baby. It's our passion project. Like we're going to find things to talk to people about, because at the very least we can pivot back into like, so I own this place. Did you know that? I mean, if you have to go there, you can. But if you're a new coach and we're like, hey, the whole game here is being socially skilled. I don't really care how much you know about why the program was designed the way it was. I care that the person in front of you thinks that you are an epic conversationalist. Well, this is just one more cheat code to going down that rabbit hole. And so it's multifaceted as far as like what you can use this for. So don't just stop with the clipboard. There are always more questions to ask, to learn more, to dig deeper, and it'll probably inform your creative strategy moving forward.
I was just going to say the same thing, Pete. I love that, because when you do engage them in conversation about where'd you come from, not only which platform did you find us on, but also what content do you remember being the most engaging? What made you pick us? What made you keep watching? What made you keep opening the emails? What made you keep following us on the gram, right? Then you're absolutely right that when you have that second level of detail, not just what platform, but what content, it absolutely helps you figure out what kind of content resonates with your avatar and helps you figure out which platforms are best at delivering that kind of content. And so it absolutely informs the kind of content you should be making. Or maybe it'll start to identify some gaps, of things that people were looking for but maybe didn't find. They might give you that feedback as well. So I was just going to ask you a question and it just left my mind. What a great, such a great interviewer.
That's okay. I can understand why you'd be uncomfortable, this being only like the 86th time you've interviewed me, and I've put you into a difficult situation.
Just really trying to impress you.
Don't know which way to go with me, and you're having a hard time making small talk.
I just really wanted you to like me, Pete. I just really wanted you to be impressed by me.
Let me say this.
Yeah.
The point of this is so that we can get to a point of where we're going to find what fires we're going to pour gasoline on.
Exactly.
And so the objective is to figure out what's working, right? And then do more. As simple as that. Mm-hmm. And I encourage people to take kind of the fire hose approach to their content strategy, at least initially. Like if some is good, more is better. Keep pumping stuff out there until you hit a point of critical mass, and then you can actually collect the feedback. But you do get to a point where it's time to get a little bit more specific in what we're going to double our efforts on. And that's my whole intention with this conversation.
100%. And you reminded me what I was going to say, which is less of a question and more of an observation, which is this is also, it's good for telling you what to do more of, but it's also good for giving you an invitation to stop doing some shit. Right? Mm-hmm. If you've been pouring your heart into Twitter or LinkedIn or, or you're still using Facebook, and you realize that no one told you they found you on Facebook. No one told you they're even still on there. In fact, your avatar has gotten much younger. They don't even know what Facebook is anymore, right? That it's okay to take some fishing poles out of the water. Right? We talk about this podcast all the time, right? Like the definition of good business strategy is often deciding what you're not going to be spending time on. It's the editing process that's so valuable. And the more data you have about where your clients are coming from and the kind of content that drove them to you, or the kind of calls to action that drove them to you, the more you can let go of those strategies that are not delivering. And I think that every strategy you let go of just gives you time back. What I'm not saying is that, if there's a month that goes by and no one mentions Instagram, you should just like shut down your account. But I would absolutely experiment with, okay, well, what if we stop posting as regularly? Let's just see what happens for a few weeks. I would run that experiment. If no one's told me they found me from my YouTube channel, or they found me from the event I do the first Saturday of every month at the farmer's market, like no one ever mentions that, I'm going to maybe just stop that event for a little while and see if there's literally any impact. I'm going to get that first Saturday of the month back in my life. Screw the farmer's market for now and just see if it matters, right? And I think that kind of editing is also a really good use of this kind of database decision making.
Yeah, one of the ways that we source information of that nature is during the initial assessment process. Historically, we've said to people, especially the ones who say, hey, I found you on social media, during the onboarding process, we'll say, hey, we post a lot of content of athletes in the gym. Are you comfortable with us putting videos or images of you training? And we're talking about high school, college, and pro athletes. They're almost universally like, yeah, it's cool. I got it. This is kind of the world I grew up in. And from there, you say, oh, awesome. What platforms do you use? Oh, I use Instagram, or I use TikTok, or I use Twitter, whatever it is. And you say, cool, what's your handle? I'd like to tag your username when we do that. And we make notes of these. There's segments on our onboarding forms for social media handles for clients. And that's where the trends exist. So, for example, we run a collegiate development program where we historically bring in anywhere from about 15 bodies to as many as one summer we did 42. And we bring in all of these athletes between the ages of, say, 18 and 22, and they are this wonderful sample of the college athlete community as a whole. And so with those ones, we're very clear about that. Hey, we get the word out about this program via social media, and the way that this summer goes for you will dictate our success in enrolling bodies next summer. So what platforms are you frequenting on social media, and how can we tag you appropriately? And what we realized during one of the summers a handful back, 4, 5, 6 years ago, was that I want to say it was like 39 of the 42 registered program participants weren't using Facebook or hadn't used it for over a calendar year. And that was a moment that we realized, like, it's time to reposition our resources.
Yeah.
We've been giving too much credit to this thing, whereas they all live right over here. And it's good to audit that periodically, because it's, you know, it informs that decision. Are we finally going to pull the trigger on TikTok? Are we a Snapchat company? Are we this? Are we that?
Yeah.
And the market is in your building. You don't need to, you know, read what they say on the Harvard Business Review about TikTok to make a decision. The people have the answers to these questions in the gym, outside your office. And so these are conversations that don't necessarily need to be limited to people during onboarding. Sure, I open this conversation by saying, hey, lead attribution matters. But constantly collecting feedback of this nature from the community, whether they're new or not, is important, because I've got clients who were very active Twitter users when they started with us, who got blocked out when they renewed their phone and haven't even bothered to figure out what their password is since that time. So habits change. Are we keeping our finger on that pulse?
Yeah, that's really well said, my friend. I think that's it. I mean, this is what market research looks like for small businesses like ours, right? Like we're not doing giant focus groups or paying some consulting company to go figure out who our avatar is. It's like we're talking to the people who are in our gym every day and saying, when you're not in this gym, where are your eyeballs? What on your phone, where are your eyeballs? Out in our, so that's all the digital stuff and social stuff, but even out in our community, where are your eyeballs? Where are you shopping? Where do you go on weekends? Where are your family? Where are your coworkers? Where do you work? Right. And those are all clues for us about how we can find more people like them. And so I think this is right. It's not just about the onboarding conversation. That's important, because you want to ask them early on how they initially came to you. That's critical. But over time, their preferences and what they care about will change. And if you're around long enough, as we've been, lucky enough to be, you'll develop people who've been around for a long time, who are maybe of one demographic and one avatar, and people who are newer, and in your case, stay young in sports performance. They stay a certain age, right? And that's a different kind of avatar to attract and care about, right? So some of us might be juggling more than one kind of client, and the way we find them and attract them might be a little different. So I think it's really important that this is part of an ongoing kind of feedback loop that you're creating in your gym. This is really well said, Pete.
We're going to have to record another episode on that whole marketing to an audience that stays the same age while you get older. I say my job is like that Matthew McConaughey character in Dazed and Confused, where he creepily says, "It's what I love about high school girls. They stay the same age, and I get older and they stay the same age." And I have these moments where I'm like, oh, I'm a 41-year-old gym owner trying to be appealing to 18-year-old athletes. I don't know what I'm doing talking to these people. I need young coaches, but I can't go say that in a public forum, which I'm doing right now, because someone's going to accuse me of ageism in the hiring process. So it's just all
Yeah.
It's
We'll
a
have to
never-ending
dedicate.
fire to
Yeah.
put out.
We'll dedicate another podcast to that because I think it's important, right? It really is critical. We're in the relationship business, they always say, right? Like our job is to build a team of people that our clients can't wait to hang out with and learn from and be challenged by, and sometimes even aspire to be like, right? And I think where someone is in life, their stage in life matters in that relationship. So this is a preview. We're not going to keep talking about it. It's a preview of a podcast
until
we're going to
next
talk
week,
about.
right?
Come, yeah, to be continued. Well, let's leave it there. I think we really did cover this topic. I think, maybe we'll closing thoughts here, Pete. If someone who's like, actually don't track my attribution, I think I know where people come from, but I don't really have a system for it. Where do they start? What's the first step for those folks?
I try and figure out where. I think this is kind of like the Pareto principle. I think that roughly 80% of our lead generation are attributed typically to a very small handful of objectives we have in place.
Mm-hmm.
But good young gym owners have a lot of initiatives in play early on. I mean,
Yep.
you got to throw as many things at the wall as you can, see what sticks. But at the very least, try and figure out what number 1 and number 2 are on that list, and ask yourself, how can I do 2x as much of number 1 and number 2 in the next 90 days? And I think you will see measurable results right out of the gate.
Well said. Great closing thought. All right, listeners. Well, if you found this valuable, please leave us a 5-star review everywhere you listen to your podcasts, and email us, Pete@businessofunicorns.com, Michael@businessofunicorns.com. We'd love to hear topics that you want us to cover, and we really mean it. We're in search right now of topics for you to cover. We have an ongoing Google Doc with things that all of you suggest and send to us, but we need more. So please really do email us or tag us on social media and give us some ideas, or DM us. We're here to serve. And also, if you have any guests in mind that you want us to talk to on the podcast, please let us know. But thanks for the great chat, Pete. I'll see you on the next one.
Talk soon.